To The Hague now, and our correspondent, Fernande van Tets. Fernande, tell us more about what's happening in court today.
So we're really hearing the greatest hits from Russia this morning in their opening statements, calling the Ukrainian regime a neo-Nazi regime, as they said it, denying any involvement in the shooting down of MH17 and saying it was Ukraine that is responsible for the suppression of the people of the Donbass and for the shelling and killing of civilians there. Now, the Dutch ambassador, the Russian ambassador to the Netherlands, in a statement also said that the dam that was mentioned by Ukraine in its opening statement on Tuesday as well, that was brought down by Ukraine, but using massive artillery shelling, as he said it. And so even though this case dates back to the annexation of Crimea in 2014, the present is still very present here in the courtroom as well. They say Ukraine built their case on disinformation and fake facts. Their lawyers have now been outlining pretty precisely why the Convention on the Suppression of the Financing of Terrorism, which is one of the two treaties this case is about, how that does not apply to MH17 because the airliner was brought down by mistake, and therefore the intent clause of that treaty is not present. Now, Ukraine will get a chance to speak back on Tuesday. Next week, we'll have one more day of arguments from Ukraine and from Russia before the judges draw back to deliberate. Now, we're hoping to have a verdict before the end of the year, but it could take a bit longer than that.
Well, what exactly is at stake here? I mean, what penalty could Russia potentially face if it's found responsible?
So the court could force Russia to pay damages if they're held responsible. And actually, the ambassador started by saying how much respect he had for this court and for international law. Russia, of course, does want to see itself as a legitimate player on the world stage, even though in practical terms, this court can't do very much. If a state fails to comply with what is done, you can take the matter to the UN Security Council. Russia, of course, is a vetoing member there, so they could always veto anything that comes up there. So in practical terms, it's not that important, but it still feels very important to Russia diplomatically. I mean, if you look, Ukraine has been trying to get Russia held accountable, be seen as a terrorist state for things like MH17, not just here, but also, for example, at the European Court of Human Rights. There's been a case in the Dutch courts. And Russia, you know, in Strasbourg, they show up. Here, they show up. They sent a huge legal team. There's another case here brought by Ukraine, which was started last year. There, Russia on the first hearing didn't show up, but now they're here in force. And they do care, and they really did say how important international law is to them. And they want to be seen as, you know, a legitimate player on the world field. They don't want to be seen as a rogue state.
Okay, our correspondent Fernande van Tets reporting for us from The Hague. Fernande, thanks so much.